Hi, this is Greg Poehler, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Thank you, that was perfect. Lots of energy, I love it.
Too much?
So, Greg, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I am well, thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. Now, Greg, like most comedians, you started off life as a lawyer specializing in intellectual property law.
Yes, which doesn't help me at all in my everyday life, my new career, but yeah, that's where I came from.
Is stand-up comedy something that you always sort of aspire to do when you were growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I watched a lot of stand-up growing up, and so I was always kind of drawn to, and it was always something that I wanted to try at some point in my life. So it was definitely I would say like a bucket list item. Yeah, so I mean, it was always something that I hoped someday to be able to muster the nerve to get up on stage, and once I did it, which was like, I don't know, maybe it's 5 years ago now. It just started this chain reaction of events that leads me to speaking to you right now. So I'm certainly glad I took the plunge.
Absolutely, your whole life has led to this moment.
Exactly. That was my long-term plan. I had a 5-year plan on the Sarah O'Connell Show, and by God, it happened. So I'm very excited.
Making dreams come true.
Yes, and you too. If you kids are out there listening, all you have to do is get up on stage one time, and then it happens. 5 years later, but still.
That's right. So, work hard at it, become a stand-up comedian, do a couple of shows, and one day you might end up on the Sarah O'Connell Show too. Growing up with your sister, Amy, were you always sort of entertainers and trying to make people laugh?
Yeah, I would say we come from a very funny family. So our dinner table and long car ride trips were generally spent trying to entertain each other. And I think she and I have a fairly similar comedic sensibility about what we find to be funny and what we find not to be funny. So for me, I distinctly remember a lot of times when I was younger trying out jokes or voices or impressions on my sister, and her just giving me like the thumbs down. And so that kind of was my gauge about whether I should release it or bring it out to the rest of the world or to my friends.
So you weren't polar opposites then?
No, I would say more bipolar in that regard.
Absolutely, judging by your new show, absolutely.
Exactly. You can't beat me on the polar puns. I have a lifetime of handling those.
So in 2006, you moved to Sweden. What first attracted you to the country, and are you now fluent in Swedish?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fluent is always a tricky word because I know there's somebody, one of my Swedish friends, who would maybe object to that. But yeah, I mean, if we had to have a Swedish conversation, I could have it. My grammar is a little off, so there's times when I sound really kind of childish when I'm speaking Swedish, but otherwise it's pretty good. I mean, I have 3 kids, so I end up speaking with their friends quite a bit. So that's really the my learning curve. So I'm trying to stay ahead of my children in terms of my level of Swedish. What drew me to Sweden is my wife, who's Swedish. We met, we were working together in New York as lawyers at the same firm. And then, yeah, I mean, the first night we met, she told me she was planning on moving back, and would I be ever willing to move to Sweden? And I was like, yeah, sure. I don't know. I don't know anything about Sweden. Went home, looked it up on a map, and no. So one thing led to another. Yeah, we were there for about 4 more years after that, and then we moved here once we started having kids. And so, yeah, I've been here 12 years now. So it's pretty. I feel pretty settled.
Well, that's incredible. Yeah, it's a beautiful country. I've been to Stockholm a couple of times.
Yeah, we're right outside of Stockholm, so it's certainly a Pleasantville feel to it, especially when you have kids here.
Absolutely. Now, did your move inspire the TV show which you worked on, Welcome to Sweden?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of how when I first came, my first visit ever to Sweden was so intense. I came directly off the plane to my now wife's summer house and met all of her relatives, and we were drinking and singing songs, and it was such a strange fish out of water experience that I, even back then, was thinking this would make a great movie or a TV show or something. I wish I had had a camera with me that first day, and so that was really the evolution of the Welcome to Sweden script, which I didn't write till many years later, but it was still very much about that feeling.
Did you ever have to pretend to be a Canadian at all?
That actually happened when I first started they have these Swedish for immigrants classes that's free for people who moved to Sweden, which is really great. And that was right about the time of the American invasion through Bush of Iraq, and there was an Iraqi doctor in class with me, and we were going around, and everybody introduced themselves, and he gave this really sad sob story about having been displaced from his village and his family coming over, and it was horrible. And yeah, so I was next in line, and I was not about to reveal myself as American. So I was a Canadian for the next few classes until I dropped out of shame and guilt for my lying. It's not much easier to be an American nowadays.
This is very true.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny when we first moved here. Look, all of us expats who are living here were always talking about how bad it was under the Bush years. But now we look back on those years fondly.
The bar's being set quite low now.
Yeah, I would love to get back to only having to defend George Bush.
It's funny when you look back on these things, like you think the situation's really bad at the time, and then something else happens.
I know. It's a good lesson on perspective, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, there was also some amazing cameos in the show as well.
In Welcome to Sweden, yeah. I mean, we tried to build the show around at least having one cameo in every episode, which would be hopefully fun for the Swedish audience. And then also at that point we had signed a deal with NBC and or Netflix. Actually, Netflix was interested from the beginning as well. So we knew it was going to be sent to the US as well. So we were trying to give it some sort of, sex appeal to both countries. So we set out with a formula of having to have one cameo, celebrity cameo in every episode, which turned out to be quite a difficult task, especially for me producing the show. A lot of them came down to the wire. We would write the script with like celebrity one, it would be written, and then 3 weeks before we were filming, it was like, who's coming to Sweden? So there was a lot of favors that we called it, that my sister called in, especially people that I knew through her, and then a lot of them were just people coming that were here in Sweden. Gene Simmons and Paul Simon and Jack Black were all here for concerts. So literally, when we would look at the schedule of who was coming to Stockholm, and then try to knock on their hotel room door with a camera crew.
This is basically how I make my show too.
Perfect. Yeah. It's best to just kind of bombard people when they least expect it. And then
absolutely. It's like, which famous people are near my house at the moment?
Yeah, that was our philosophy. And it worked. So the tough part was the first season we had like Will Ferrell and Malin Ackerman and a few people who were under the assumption that it was just going to be a Swedish only show, and they were just doing it like as a favor. And then the NBC picked it up in the US, and so it became this bigger thing. And so we had a lot of agents coming to us after the fact and being like, "Hey, we didn't really get paid for this. You didn't tell us this was going to be on American television." So we just kind of conveniently forgot their numbers. I owe a lot of people a lot of money, is basically what I'm saying.
So did you having not been to Sweden before, did you find it a bit of a culture shock when you first moved there, or were the countries more similar than you perhaps envisioned?
Yeah, I would say probably the latter. I mean, I think as someone who is a very liberal East Coast American, I think I have more in common with Swedes than I do with, people from Alabama, for example.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I don't think it was as much of a culture shock as it would be in other places, and also their English is so incredibly good here that is a little bit of an ease into transition wise. A lot of my American friends still don't really speak much Swedish here, so it's very American friendly, I would say, in that regard.
Yeah, that's the great thing about traveling around Europe. Because a lot of countries are kind of bordering a lot of other countries as well. I know some people that speak 4 languages.
Mm-hmm.
This is incredible.
Offs.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. Especially when I turn up and I only barely speak English.
Exactly. I know. It's sad. My kids are bilingual. My oldest is starting French class now, and he just it's so much easier for him. He has the accents. Actually, both my sons can do. They're amazing at accents, and I think it's just that something in the brain when you're learning 2 languages at once that just kind of kicks in. So it's definitely an advantage for them.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I think when you're younger, you do just sort of absorb and learn things a lot easier. Well, I didn't, but some other people do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what were the highlights of working on Welcome to Sweden? What did you sort of learn from it, and what did you gain from it?
Well, for me, it was just it was like a boot camp of the entertainment industry. It was all at once, and I didn't know what I was getting into. And when I started Welcome to Sweden, I was, the showrunner and head writer and lead actor and producer. And I took on those roles just because I didn't really know any better. If I had to do it over, I would probably have divested some of my roles in that sense, or at least my duties. But yeah, so it was like anything, if it's being similar to if I went away for 2 months to violin camp. You come back and be like, well, I'm better at violin because I could do it before, so I'm much better than I was before, but I'm not sure if I'm still a violinist.
I think it counts. It's like I consider myself a singer. I can't sing, but I do make noises, when music's on.
There you go. So I think by the end of it, I certainly, looking back on it, it was such an amazing experience to kind of be thrown into everything at once. When I was in the middle of it, it was very all-encompassing. It really was something that I devoted, 3 or 4 years of my life to, not just work-wise, but just I was thinking about it all the time. When you're in charge of a show like that, it's just all-consuming. But of course, I was so unbelievably grateful for the opportunity. The whole thing was just like some sort of dream where, every day I woke up and couldn't believe that it was happening. It was just this amazing transformation, especially so late in life, to be able to have that opportunity. So it was a weird mix of being incredibly grateful, mixed with incredibly stressed. And vacillating between, especially when it was editing phase, because I was also involved in the editing room and stuff, where I'd be watching myself on the screen every day, just my face, and multiple TVs in front of me. And there would be moments where I would say, wow, I think I'm surprisingly good at this for a first timer. And then there were other times where I was like, oh no, this they're gonna see, they're gonna know, they're gonna see that I'm not ready for this. So yeah, all the emotions at once. So it's certainly an experience that I hope to be able to sit down at a bar one day and regale my stories of how I somehow wrote a show in my attic and it got on to television around the world. but it's hard still for me to have the right perspective on it.
See, because I think the main thing holding me back is there isn't really a good space in my attic to write, but apart from that, you know.
Yes, I can sense that. You don't need an attic. Look where you are right now. It looks beautiful.
Exactly. So I love the show You, Me and Her. I found out very recently it was actually based on a 2012 Playboy article.
Yes, it's that's the original idea. I think was optioned by Peter Jason, who is one of our executive producers, along with John Scott Shepherd, developed the idea based on the article. But I think it's very loosely based on it, because I don't think they used much. But I think the idea or the impetus for the concept came from that source, certainly.
How did you first get involved with the show, and what sort of attracted you to the role of Jack?
Well, to tie into the Welcome to Sweden got canceled in the U.S. Some summer night. I can't even remember what year now. Probably 2015. And then the next day, I got the script for You, Me, Her sent to me.
Wow.
No. So I was like, in full crying when I got the script. And then, so I stayed up that night reading the script through my tears, and it was such a great, right from the get-go. John Scott Shepherd, who wrote the script, had you could get a real sense of what he wanted it to be, and it was a show that, on its face, might seem like it was, a little controversial or trying to advocate for some alternative lifestyle, but it really wasn't. Even that original pilot script felt like felt relatable to me, and all the characters felt like they were real people who were just found themselves in the situation. So of course I told my agents I loved the script, and then luckily John, we spoke the next day. I was at our summer house here in Sweden, in the Baltic Sea, when this was happening, and we spoke the next day and really hit it off. And then he really or campaigned for me to play the role of Jack. So I really owe him for the role. But it was one of those classic moments of impeccable timing, because if Welcome to Sweden hadn't got canceled, then I wouldn't have been eligible for the role, which they were casting that week. So very fortunate, and I'm so happy to be a part of it. And the fact that it's still continuing is wonderful.
Absolutely. Now, so for anyone that hasn't seen the show, You, Me, Her is about a couple who want to spice up the marriage, and they hire an escort who, unbeknownst to them at the time, then they all become romantically involved together.
Yeah, exactly. Good summary.
Thank you very much. I've watched the show twice.
I mean, I think it's a romantic comedy involving three people. If you want to get even more succinct, and it's two people that were married and didn't think of themselves as those type of people, or didn't think of themselves as, weren't looking for anything, and just, like you said, fall in love with the same person. And so I think it's really exploring polyamory and whether that is a viable form of relationship in today's world, and whether that can work. And I think, through season 3, we're still figuring that out.
And so, what are Rachel and Priscilla like to work with? Because you've all got incredible chemistry on screen.
Oh, thank you. Because off screen, they're the worst. I'll be honest. They're fantastic. Right from the get-go, we had really we hit it off when we met, and I think they're very different people in real life. But
so they don't live together.
They don't live together. They don't look alike. One of them is much taller than the other. But they're both Canadian, so that's something they have in common. But no, I think the three of us work really well together, and I think the nature of our roles kind of require that we get along. So luckily we do. It's been a joy to work with them for 3 seasons now.
Absolutely, because there's so many sort of intimate scenes and a lot of scenes where you've got your shirt off as well.
Yes, thank you for noticing that. It makes me want to go on a diet right now for the next season. But yeah, I think unfortunately, as the guy, men tend to be objectified in these type of shows. I don't know if you've noticed with the shirtless scenes quite a bit. So I think there's been less and less of it. Last season, I was a little bit, shall we say, chunkier than I was in seasons 1 and 2. So in many ways, that makes it easier to not have your shirt off, because people, especially the wardrobe people are kind of like, yeah, maybe he would have a T-shirt on in this scene, fully clothed.
Otherwise, the wardrobe people have nothing to do.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, and the sound also likes to have a microphone inside the shirt. So, but hopefully, if we have additional seasons, Jack will get his act together and show up in shape.
And have you ever had any couples sort of reaching out and contacting you that have been in a perhaps similar situation?
Yeah, actually a lot. Not so much proposing anything for me. I don't get a lot of those. I think that the girls get a lot more of those. I mean, Priscilla's had some requests at various things we've been at. A lot of the panels and conventions and things that we've done interviews at or questions and answers or screenings, there's been a lot of people involved in the polyamory community who obviously have a vested interest in the show and really root for it. And so, and oftentimes have some critiques about how we're portraying it. But for the most part, they've been very supportive, and it's fascinating to me to meet them because, yeah, I mean, a lot of guys would come up to me at these things and say, like, "Oh, I'm living your life, and here's my wife, and here's my girlfriend," and it seems to work for them. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, which is good because I think my character is also the same way. I myself am still trying. I'm not really taking a stance on polyamory and whether I believe it can work. I was just watching the last episode of season 3 this morning, actually, because I got the link for it finally. And as I was watching, I was like, I'm still not sure if these 3 are going to work it out, or if this can work long term. So I'm still on the fence about it. But I think the good thing about our show is it is providing some sort of frame of reference for people who, because the more I learn about the subject, the more I realize how common it is, especially among younger people. So, much in the same way. I mean, I remember when Caitlyn Jenner came out. It was, and then someone that I worked with, or someone was close to me, also at the same time, was transitioning.
Yeah.
And publicly came out, and it just the fact that she was out there gave the everyday common folk like my parents, for example, some frame of reference to be like, oh, you mean she's going to be like Caitlyn Jenner. Now I get it. It's something just to have something in the mainstream that is portraying it. So I often wonder, I think about what would happen if my wife and I, next week introduced our girlfriend to our parents instead of friends, what that would be like and what the social acceptance would be like. And that's really what we want the show to be posing as, or introducing about what happens when, in the suburbs, all of a sudden there's this 3-person relationship. And if everybody's consenting and willing and love each other, then why can't that work? Why should that be a social taboo? And I'm still not sure whether it can work, but we're certainly trying to find out through these characters.
Absolutely. I think it'll probably take about another 15 or 20 seasons to properly establish if it does really work.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of seasons for me to stay in shape, though, Sarah. I'm not sure I want to sign up for that. I'd like to let myself go one of these years.
Absolutely, just spoil yourself. If you all get married or something, it kind of happens anyway. People sort of.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I'm very grateful. I mean, the polyamorous community has certainly, for the most part, embraced us and are happy with how we've been portraying it. So I don't mean to dismiss their thoughts and their lifestyles. And I think that the bottom line of the show is, if you're feeling it, if it's your truth, then live it and stay with it as long as you can, and maybe prove the doubters wrong in that regard.
Absolutely, and I think the good thing, as you say, about the shows that is creating this conversation, it's certainly the first show that I've seen explore this.
Yeah, and I do think it's perhaps shocking to a lot of people, especially if they're seeing it for the first time or just stumbling across it, and then all of a sudden, and I do think it's, as I was trying to get at it, maybe not so eloquently about the frame of reference thing, but there's just something about seeing two people kiss, and then seeing that same person kiss somebody else, and then like a three-way romantic kiss that you just haven't seen it a lot. So it's shocking in a sense that it's almost a matter of first impression for you, and so something feels off kilter about it. And then when you have to kind of re-examine your own feelings, why is that so shocking to you? And I think it's just because you haven't seen it before. So maybe we'll see a lot more of that in the future. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. And so in season 2, the people have got obviously a lot closer together, and they start exploring the idea of surrogacy. But then at the end of season 2, Emma leaves, and it fades to black. Now on the 1st of June, season 3 launches on Netflix. What might we expect? Where are the characters now? What are they getting up to?
Well, for the first time in Yumi, her history, the season or the episode doesn't pick up right where it left off. There's a few months that have elapsed in between season 2 and season 3. So Jack and Izzy are living together alone, the two of them, for the first time, which is interesting because that dynamic I don't think had been explored as much as the two women in season 2. And Rachel's character, Emma, is in Seattle and she finds a new love, a new lesbian girlfriend. So that's the dynamic that we start season 3 with, is the threesome really being broken up for an extended period of time for the first time. And so it was great to be able to explore those emotions, especially in the first half of season 3, where my character is just really hurt from his wife leaving him and leaving them, and bitter, and so that's where it picks up, and obviously there's some things that happen from there, but it's I think in general it's still about, are these three gonna get back together? Are these three gonna make it? And like I said, on a larger scale, are these relationships viable?
It's a very interesting show, and I really can't wait to watch season 3. And obviously, having not seen it, this is a difficult question, but would you sort of be open to doing a season 4? Is it possible to do a season 4? Do they get trapped under a vending machine and they can't? Or?
Season 4 is only under a vending machine, yes.
Season 4, the escape.
It's just, that's a good, I should send that over for script ideas. Just entire, are we just kind of trapped underneath?
Yeah, Yumi and
talking about their relationship.
Yeah, it'll be Yumi and Hershey's.
That's really good.
Thank you. I didn't know I was going to say that.
Yeah, Hershey. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it, but I don't think it's a spoiler to say that nobody dies in season 3. Well, at least nobody close to the 3 of them. And so, yes, I do think that let's put it this way. I think shortly you may be hearing some good news about additional seasons.
Oh, very exciting because after
Hypothetically, there
Yeah.
may be some announcement very shortly.
this is very exciting news because after season 1, season 2 and 3 were announced at once.
Yes, and that may happen again.
They will re-announce season 2 and 3. This is amazing.
I'm gonna reissue the press release as a reminder. So we're very hopeful. We've heard good things about our chances at getting the additional season. So I'm getting in shape as we speak.
Fantastic. Well, I really hope there is. I love the show and I love the characters, and I'd love to see it continue.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm happy you're watching. It's great to have a home here on Netflix internationally. I think it's exciting to be able. I mean, obviously, you just want as many people as possible to see your show, so it's nice that we have that platform.
Absolutely. And what have been your highlights of filming and working on the show for the first 3 seasons so far?
For me, I just, in a general sense, it's been work as an actor. I think getting back to your Welcome to Sweden questions, I started that is on Netflix here in Sweden, and my daughter is 6, and so she just found it recently. She was on Netflix and said, "Hey, look, it's you." I don't even know if she knew I was an actor prior to that point, but so I started rewatching the show with her, and I'm not sure if it's all in my head, but I just feel like I'm such a better actor now than I was then. Now I've done 50 episodes of network television where I was in most of the scenes. So I feel like, speaking of acting boot camp, I feel like I'm really hitting my stride as an actor, and things are coming to me now, and I feel like I'm figuring things out in many ways. So in general, that's been my takeaway, and I'm very excited to kind of get back into that mode. Also very excited not to have to worry about the producing aspect of it. So for me, it's been very freeing to only have to concentrate on acting. And I think the first season was very difficult for me in that regard. I was constantly coming to sets with new ideas.
Yeah.
But maybe we should change this, and then gradually I realized, oh wait, they don't want me to do that at all. They just want me to shut up and say the lines. So I think I've adapted to my role in that regard. But on specifically though, I think the relationships that I have there with the actors and with John and with our directors, Sarah St. Ange was the director for the last 2 seasons, and Nisha Ganacha in the first season, and the crew. I mean, we've had a lot of not a lot, but a few of the same that have been for all 3 seasons. And we film in Vancouver, so that whole, for me, it's like a 10-week experience where I'm off at my Vancouver acting camp, where it's raining most of the time. So that whole, that for me, that when I think of You, Me, Her, I think that's what I'll always think of. It's almost like I go away to camp for 10 weeks, and I hope it lasts forever.
Absolutely, fingers crossed. Be careful, by the way. So I visited Vancouver once, and I think it's Stanley Park it's called. I saw this raccoon sort of running past, and so I kind of innocently went up to it to take a photo, and it turned out it was this really angry one-eyed raccoon, and I think it tried to eat me.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, it didn't.
Thank you for the warning. You sure it wasn't just a homeless man? It was
in a raccoon suit.
Yeah, no, Vancouver is wonderful for me. I don't know too much about it other than the 10 weeks I'm there, but I really love the people there, and it's a part of the world that's really an interesting stop, an interesting place to call home for a bit. So looking forward to going back there in October. So
you're going back there? That's good.
Oh, yeah. For yeah.
For about 10 weeks, yeah.
For a 10-week visit. Yeah. No, I do have. I mean, most of the cast and crew are there in some regards. So I will be paying them visits. Yes.
That's, that's lovely. And yeah, you can talk about season 4 being trapped under the vending machine. Then it'll be a good
I
time.
love that idea because, as you know, season 3 does end with a vending machine following all of us.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think the escape. I like the idea of them just being under there, kind of holding it just high enough where you can see their mouths, and still discussing their relationship over the course of 10 episodes as people try to free them.
Having really in-depth discussions about their relationship.
Yes.
Passing people snacks.
Yes, and I like the concept of maybe them breaking up, while they're under there, and but they're still there. Like there's nothing much you can do. Like, fine, it's over then. And then,
Imagine the awkwardness.
Yeah, and then one episode of just silence. Very low budget.
There's been movies like Phone Booth. I think they could actually do this.
I know, exactly. I love You, Me, and Hershey.
Definite spin-off potential, I think.
I will put a word in with the writers.
Please do. So am I right in understanding that the show's kind of filmed in a block, so it's not necessarily filmed in sequence?
Yes, we film by location, so it's always out of sequence. But to be honest, that's how we shot Welcome to Sweden as well. So all the other actors are constantly complaining about it, but it's the only thing I know, so it doesn't bother me at all. It's a little tricky when you. Luckily, we get all 10 scripts at once, so I think it would be more difficult if we didn't have that. So we read through, so we know what the season is. But then the only tricky thing really is trying to figure out emotionally where you're at in certain scenes, or what has happened. There's been times where I've showed up to a scene and be like, wait a minute, are we broken up, or have we broken up yet? And they're like, yeah, that just happened. You're coming back from the breakups. And it's like, okay. So that's obvious. I think it's harder for the director really to try to, because I generally never know what's going on, so they have to tell me what my mood should be, and then I go from there. But yeah, it's an interesting way to shoot, but I don't know any other way.
Yeah, I guess it must be kind of tricky to react to things that you haven't acted out yourself yet or experienced.
Yeah, that's the one downside. There's oftentimes when you film a scene after the fact, when you shoot out of order, so you'll film one scene and then you'll film the scene before it, and the scene before it will go maybe in a different direction if we're improvising or something, or do something crazy and be like, I would have loved to have known that I did that walking into this scene. But practically for me, the only big problem with that is like facial hairs. They tend to have different variations of beard. And oftentimes that gets kind of screwy when you look at the final result. There's some scenes where I walk in to a restaurant pretty clean shaven, and then as I'm eating, I have like this, and then I'll leave and be clean shaven. So I would definitely look for that in season 3. There's a lot of uneven beard moments.
See, I just assumed that you'd been waiting so long to get served.
Exactly, and then shaved right before we left, as one does. Yeah,
absolutely. So, can you talk a bit about what perhaps you'd like to do next? Any other projects you might have coming up, or would you like to do any more writing, any more stand-up comedy? What are your sort of aspirations and goals?
I mean, I've been doing quite a bit of stand-up since we wrapped season 3, so I kind of got that out of my system, which was fun. Right now I'm writing, I'm directing, I've written and I'm directing a short film that we're filming here in Stockholm in August. So that's my first directing foray into the directing world, and it's very exciting and very difficult. Speaking of all-encompassing, there's a lot of things that I'm still working through, how that's going to work out. And then I'm writing another TV show with one of my writing partners from Welcome to Sweden that hopefully will also be some sort of mix of American Swedification. Can't say too much about that because we're writing it and trying to sell it, but very much hoping that that works. That's because that's a show that I'm very into right now in my own head. So perhaps starting that whole process once again over of obsessing over a show for the next 5 years.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck with it. I've loved everything you've done, your two shows, and I've seen quite a lot of your stand-up comedy as well. I managed to find it out online.
Oh, cool. That's scary. It's on there. Illegally obtained footage.
It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I just kind of do that as another form of whatever release, but I'm at the stage now where I'm just kind of getting pure enjoyment out of it. So it's good. But I think it's because I don't do it too often. I think many comedians who slog through it, night after night, kind of lose the joy. But yeah, I've been having a good time with it.
That's fantastic. So finally, have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show, and of course all your fans around the world?
Well, my message is to keep on keeping on. No, I don't know. I'm very bad at messages. I think in general, let's just be nice to each other, regardless of what you're doing. I think for me, the best advice I ever got as an actor, one of the producers on Welcome to Sweden, right before we started, I asked him if he had any advice, and he said, yeah, like learn everybody on the crew's name. That will go such a long way. At the time I was like, of course it will, that's such a stupid thing. But when you see many actors in various projects who kind of just show up and go back to their trailer, and I'm not that type of person, so I feel like that maybe stands out in the entertainment world. But I think it just makes for a more fun experience for everyone if you kind of are all messed together. And I think we do have that feeling on the You, Me, Her set and crew. We all hang out together and eat together, and all the actors are very giving and loving and friendly. I think it's maybe because it's a Canadian show. But I think, especially for actors, that's advice that I would give is to make sure that, don't think you're too important, because nobody cares about you.
Yeah, I think that's very good advice. And I think certainly from interviewing people, I can kind of learn a lot about how I sort of see people treat everyone else around them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't think that's specific to the acting world, but there does, for whatever reason, here's why I say that, is because once I started acting, everyone that I was working with started saying like, oh my, I can't believe how nice you are. You're the nicest person. And in my, 12, 15 years prior to acting in whatever job I had, nobody ever said that. Like, it wasn't any of my colleagues that were like, you are the nicest person I've ever met. So I realized it must just be that everybody else are total assholes in the industry. And that I'm looking extremely nice by comparison, because I'm the same guy I was when I was, working in these offices. And, I wasn't considered to be the best colleague by any means. So the bar has been set very low in the acting world. So if you're at all any sort of normal human being, you get a lot of kudos for it.
That's fantastic. So if you're slightly nice, you might get a Nobel Peace Prize if you're nice in the acting world.
Yes. Am I eligible? I don't know if I'm eligible for that this year, but I'm going to actually tell my agents to put my name in for that.
I think you absolutely should. Yeah.
I also just, I don't know why I didn't say this earlier, but I also just came back from filming a small role in my sister's new movie. She's directing for the first time for Netflix, called Wine Country. With a bunch of amazingly talented women. So that, I don't know when that's coming out on Netflix, but that's going to be fantastic. I just was there for a few days on set, but I think that's going to be like a hugely successful and extremely funny movie.
Oh, fantastic. So I'll be sure to look out for that. And where is Wine Country? I lived in LA for a while, and I know in sort of Santa Barbara there's lots of vineyards.
Yeah, it's somewhere up north there. I don't know where they filmed, but yeah, somewhere around there. I was playing a doctor, so I was in a hospital prior to them getting to Wine Country. So I kind of saw them off before they started imbibing.
Well, I look forward to watching it. And Greg, thank you so much for coming on my show today. It's been an absolute delight talking to you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. And like I said, for anybody who wants to be on your show, it takes 5 years. Just get up on stage, and the domino effect. One thing will lead to another, and then you'll be sitting talking to Sarah. It's easy.
Exactly. And then, of course, next year we're co-hosting the Oscars.
Yes.
She'll probably get an opportunity.
After my Nobel Peace Prize, which I'm pretty sure I'm a lock for, because not many people apply for it. You don't realize. Yeah, people don't realize.
You win by default.
There's only one submission from my agent, and then then the world is ours.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, and thank you to everyone that's watched this interview today. Be sure to share, subscribe, give the video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much.